Whether purchasing a home or a cash-out refi to consolidate some higher interest debt, you can trust Fellowship Home Loans. Start the process. Make the call. 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Correspondent Marcela Sanchez reports on the death of a second child linked to measles in West Texas.
Texas has reported a second child has died from a measles-related illness. On Sunday, a spokesperson for UMC Health System in Lubbock, Texas, said the child was unvaccinated and had been receiving treatment for measles complications. An unvaccinated child in the state died in February. It was the first measles-related death in the U.S. in a decade. West Texas alone has almost 500 measles cases, and nationwide, it's double the number of cases reported in 2024. There's been an uptick in measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination rates, but health officials say it's not as high as they would like, especially since studies show the outbreak could go on for several more months or up to a year. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has traveled to Texas to comfort the family after the second school-age child who was not vaccinated died from a measles-related illness. Breaking news at townhall.com. An icon from the golden age of television has died.
Jay North was TV's Dennis the Menace starting in 1959. He played the part of the good-hearted family and neighborhood mischief maker in the CBS sitcom adaptation of Hank Ketcham's popular comic set in an idyllic American suburb. Costumed in a striped shirt and overalls, his character's antics frequently flummoxed his crotchety next-door neighbor, Mr. Wilson, played by Joseph Kearns, and bewildered his patient parents, played by Herbert Anderson and Gloria Henry. North died Sunday in his home in Florida after a bout with cancer at age 73. George Williams reporting.
Texas opening a probe into Kellogg's cereals. The state says the cereal giant may be in violation of Texas laws by advertising its products as being healthy. The Office of State Attorney General Ken Paxton said some of Kellogg's cereals are filled with petroleum-based artificial food colorings that have been linked to hyperactivity, obesity, and other health issues. More on these stories at townhall.com. I'm John.
Number one for live and local
conservative talk.
I've been a registered Democrat for 28 years.
I'm really glad you're talking about this.
You gotta love these idiots out here. They think we're all stupid, I guess.
News, analysis, opinion.
Totally agree on that.
I disagree with you.
It's over.
Very upset.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Wanted to ask you really quick. Is there room on the bandwagon for me?
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert meteorologist Kristen Cornett with your forecast. Finally, some sunshine today. Look for a high of 59 degrees. A little breezy, though. Winds out of the north. Gusts to about 22 miles per hour. Mostly clear and cold overnight tonight. We are expecting a widespread frost as we drop right down to the freezing mark. So a chilly start to Tuesday morning. Sunny skies Tuesday afternoon, though, with a high of 54 degrees. That is about 10 degrees below average. That's your First Alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Kristen Cornett.
Number one for live and local
conservative talk.
You can take these facts.
I know for a fact.
It's just about time. It's not now. When?
Oh, there's just so much to say and not enough time to say it or do it.
I'm sorry. This is our country. This is the country that you and I love.
I'm kind of not surprised.
Man, that's what they need.
Very upset.
A lot of fear.
I agree with that, and well, who couldn't agree with it? It's a fact.
101.9 and 94.1
St. Louis is number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
We'll prevail.
This hour of Colombo Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Hello and welcome to the kickoff of another extremely busy week, Monday afternoon here on Colombo Company on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. I'm Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Stell.
Wait a minute, Tony. When you came in, you said there wasn't much going on.
Oh, my goodness.
I guess you were kidding me.
I said to Stell, anything to talk about today?
Nope, not really.
Yeah, no, we got nothing going on. You know what? We all know about the tariffs and the stuff going on with Donald Trump. And of course, we're going to talk about those things. I bet you didn't know that Al Sharpton is going after Pepsi.
No, I didn't know that.
Al Sharpton has given Pepsi a 21-day ultimatum to fall in line. I'll tell you those details a little bit later on in the show. Also,
wait. Al's not going Maha on us, is he?
Oh, you just have to wait and find out.
All right.
We'll talk about it in a little bit.
You're such a tease.
Also, the Trump administration has launched a new investigative unit to protect female athletes and defend his executive order banning men from playing women's sports. So we'll talk about that new initiative from the Trump administration. Also, a disturbing email released by the Republican candidate for governor in New Jersey, revealing an email that was sent to New Jersey State Police recently, telling the officers to not comply with federal arrest warrants when it came to anything involving New Jersey's sanctuary state policies. So just because this happened in New Jersey, it doesn't mean that it's not something that we should all be paying very, very close attention to, the behind the scenes workings and agendas by many out there. So we'll get into all of those things. And of course, the number one story of the day is Trump and his tariffs as we kick off this week. It's going to be very interesting to see how the markets react, to see how the world reacts, and to see how the Trump administration reacts to some of the criticism. And I'm sure, some of the market reactions that have happened and will continue to happen throughout this week. So we are going to talk about that with our first guest. Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments, former Missouri State Representative, is on the line with us to kick things off here. Paul, I don't even know where to start. I started to write down some headlines today, like Donald Trump warned China today that he would impose more tariffs if China went through with their announcement that they were going to add more tariffs last week after Trump added more tariffs to China. And that's just one. So I started writing. I was like, you know what? There's so many of these. I'll run out of time to even bring them all up. I think everybody knows, Paul, the reaction that we have seen both in the media and in the markets from Trump's tariff policies. What do you think so far about the rollout of Trump's agenda?
I think he's rolling it out with a lot of strategy. I think that he's getting what he wants from a lot of countries. Barron's reported just this morning that there were already 50 countries on that tariff list who are requesting to come to the negotiating table and talk to Donald Trump about how we both get a better deal rather than we have tariffs and they have tariffs. So that's really good. 50 countries wanting to do that. Netanyahu is the first one that's already has met or will be meeting with President Trump about that.
Yeah, he's at the White House right now.
Yep. The big one that we're worried about right now, though, is China, for so many reasons. I mean, this is a really key conversation that we have to have with one of our biggest trading partners, really. I mean, you can't pick anything up without a saying being made in China. They also finance a lot of our debt. They also have a military and some dominance that they're trying to exert there in the China Sea. So how these conversations go with China, I think right now the market, if you're watching the S&P 500 today, it's down, but it's not reacting the way it was last week. And I kind of think that the market's wondering what's going to happen. This ultimatum, really, that President Trump put on China when they slapped a tariff on top of the tariff we just slapped on them. Not only will we put another tariff out if they don't take it back, but then Donald Trump is also saying that all negotiation will be off the table if they don't take it off. And I think that they're understanding that you can't just bluff your way into striking a deal with Donald Trump. You gotta put up or shut up. And so I think the market's really waiting right now to find out where this conversation with China is going to go. Already the S&P 500 this morning was flirting with being down 20% from its recent highs last month or the month before. So that's recession territory. If you're gauging a recession just by what the stock market does, which everybody needs to understand, a recession is not what the stock market does. We can have great jobs numbers. We just had some good job numbers last week. But the stock market is responding to the tariffs, not the economy. It's responding to the tariffs. But still, for it to be flirting with that negative 20% benchmark is a pretty big deal. That is bear market territory. And so, everyone's really waiting to see what happens with China.
So Trump put out a statement over the weekend and it sort of doubled down on this a couple times in recent days, basically saying, one of them literally, he said, hang tough, in a statement on Truth Social over the weekend. He's said that we need to be patient, don't panic. He said that his policies will eventually supercharge the economy. But I think we talked about this last week, Paul, when you were on with us. I mentioned that there are people that I know that are diehard Trump fans, that are strong conservatives, Trump supporters, Trump voters, that feel like the president is way off base on this. And then obviously all the pushback he's getting from the left and the liberal media and things like that. He is getting support, lots of support from some of his supporters and his administration. But this is a divider of not just the country by what side of the political aisle that you're on, but it really is like an emotional divider of even Trump supporters, people that are against this, that are Trump voters. Some of them are very aggressively against this. What would you say to that group of conservative voters
that are aggressively against President Trump's tariffs?
Yeah, that are saying that this is his one big mistake. This is the first major misstep of his presidency. How would you respond to that?
I would say it's going to be really, really important to take this whole conversation in as deep of context as you can take it. And I'll give you an example. There's a lot of people that are pointing to the last tariff, the last big round of tariffs that we tried to implement back in the early mid-1900s, and how it was an utter failure and Congress had to act. But nobody's really talking about all the tariffs that we had in the late 1700s and all throughout the 1800s. Now, I've talked about this at length with you on your show before, but this is where context matters. Tariffs will be a tax. Ultimately, the consumer is the one that has to pay for these tariffs. If it suddenly costs 25% more for China to produce and import goods to the U.S., well, they don't just want to lose 25% of their revenue, so they'll just raise the price and make us pay for it. This is how taxes always work. But the thing is if the consumer is going to be the one ultimately paying for this, well, it doesn't really bode well for our economy if we're also being taxed to death everywhere else from inside the country. So
hey, Paul,
I can see both sides. Yes.
I don't mean to cut you off, but the president just started speaking there from the White House, sitting next to Benjamin Netanyahu about this issue. Perfect timing while we have you on the phone. Let's dip into this live. Let's listen to the president for a second and see if we can get any new information.
A little bit about trade and what they're doing for the United States. So I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. And
thank you.
Benjamin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Don. Thank you. Mr. President, I want to first thank you for inviting me again to the White House. You've been a remarkable friend of the state of Israel. You stand by us. You're standing with us. You are a great, great champion of our lives. And,
All right, that's Benjamin Netanyahu speaking. Let's get through all the niceties here at the beginning, and when they start to talk about any decisions or agreements or any plans, we will either go back to this or bring this to you as it happens. We'll continue to monitor this situation at the White House with Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. But Paul, getting back to that conversation, about the Trump supporters and the conservatives that are the ones that are most likely to give Donald Trump a chance. And certainly his record early on in this administration helps him out in his argument of trust me and hang in there and be patient. What kind of patience? Americans aren't known for patience, Paul, especially in the media. So, that will be something I think that works against the president trying to make his case. What do you think about, his ability to calm people down long enough for there to be some benefit of this showing? So, to hopefully quell some of the concerns that people have.
Yeah, I think that there will be. I saw an interview. These interviews are much more infrequent than they used to be, but I saw an interview with Thomas Sowell over the weekend, and they were discussing President Trump's tariffs. And like I was saying before, we quickly cut out to try to capture some words from the president. People just have to understand the context of it. It's also important to understand the context of these tariffs as a negotiating chip. And so if this is really the main strategy is to use tariffs as a negotiating chip, then surely we should expect a lot of volatility in the market because we're in the middle of negotiating and watching the market go up and down. That is a picture of the anxiety of producers and retail investors and institutional investors as everyone's just trying to figure out. And here's a phrase you might have heard recently, what are the rules going to be as we kind of have this discussion about what the global economy is going to look like and America's role in it and our relationship with a lot of our trade partners. So two things. One, we have to consider that the end game here might not just be only tariffs. There might be other things that are on the table that we're trying to get because Donald Trump is a deal maker, wrote the book, The Art of the Deal, right? And so we have to consider that as a context. But then also we cannot fail to remember that during the late 1700s, all throughout the 1800s and into the early 1900s, the only way we gathered federal revenue was essentially through tariffs. And that was per capita some of the most prosperous times for our country. So if we have an income tax and we're also covering the tax of these tariffs as the consumer winds up paying the end price for that, the cost of the tariff itself, then that could not be good for the economy, it seems to me, for the American taxpayer to get dinged on the earning and the spending side of his dollar. And so I think that we have an opportunity here to do a lot of good in terms of comprehensive tax reform, eliminating some taxes, and also maybe resetting these trade deals with other countries, or at least using these tariffs as a negotiating chip to secure some other strategic things that we need as a nation.
Paul, we're almost out of time here. Don't be surprised if I lean on you a couple times this week as this plays out, because I really, really appreciate the insight and opinion on this issue. Real quick, last thing. This was just announced there at the White House by Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu said that free trade is fair trade, and that Israel and the United States are working rapidly to eliminate all tariffs between the two countries. What do you think about that as a first step for Trump and this policy?
Yeah, I think I'm all for it. That's how our tariff on Israel goes away, is they agree to drop their tariff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if other countries follow suit, then pretty soon we're not going to be talking about a whole list of countries that we're slapping tariffs on. We're going to talk about a whole list of countries that we don't have any tariffs with. And then at that point, that probably puts a lot more pressure on China. And so I think that that's a really good first step. And I think that that's one of the things that Donald Trump wants. If it's just about collecting revenue, then we would keep the tariff. But clearly he's trying to change some things.
Great stuff. Paul Curtman, former Missouri State Rep, president of PR Curtman Investments. Really appreciate your time as always, my friend. And as I mentioned, if I start to pester you with requests to come on, I understand if you have to block me temporarily.
Anytime.
I'm sure I'll be blowing you up here in the coming days. Paul, thanks as always for your time, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tony.
You bet. All right. We are going to revisit this issue a little bit later on this hour. Grant Black from the Hammond Institute at Lindenwood. They have an event coming up that is going to specifically address this tariff situation that is happening. So we'll tell you about that event. We'll talk more about this issue when we talk to Grant Black from the Hammond Institute at Lindenwood at about 2:45 this afternoon. We are going to switch gears and talk to our friend Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire. She's got an article out about the Signal chat breach. We're also going to talk about that issue a little bit later on with Mike McClary, our big tech expert. We're going to talk about Signal a little bit. So we'll have Virginia fill us in on that article and more next here on Colombo and Company.
Like you've already won, and you only own it when you say easy come, easy go. This won't break my heart, don't you know? Sometimes high, sometimes low. Easy come, easy go.
This is 101.9 and 94.1.
Female millennial Trump supporter. I listen to it like every day. Like, seriously, you get it.
News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors, and my favorite sandwich at Capriati's is a Philly cheesesteak with peppers, sweet peppers, but sometimes hot peppers. I love Capriati's, and so will you.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
The Herzog Foundation is the vision of its founder, Stanley Herzog, and it exists to promote quality Christ-centered K-12 education nationwide.
Hi, this is Chris Stegall with the Herzog Foundation. We offer a wide variety of resources relevant to today's families, including a free online publication called The Lion. The lion is one of God's most majestic creatures, symbolizing strength and courage. Named for its attributes, the Lion publication carries articles covering a wide range of topics facing American families and culture, especially related to the education of children. The Lion can be found online at readlion.com. That's READ lion.com.
Sign up for The Lion at readlion.com and find dozens of must-read articles published every day. Visit readlion.com and subscribe for the weekly and daily digests so you never miss an article. Readlion.com. That's readlion.com.
McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com.
Hey, DIY warriors, ready to transform your outdoor space? Start with Lee May Concrete Block, St. Louis's trusted family-owned manufacturer since 1947. Whether you're building a retaining wall, creating a backyard fireplace, or pouring concrete, Lee May's got you covered. From compact blocks to large cast concrete, they provide materials and professional guidance to bring your vision to life. Military and first responders get special discounts. Visit Lee May Block Showroom or LeeMayBlock.com. Lee May Block, building your dream one block at a time.
On the next
Larry Connors USA.
With Larry Connors USA, you not only get news, analysis, opinion, you also get education.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Big thanks to Paul Curtman for joining us in that last segment, talking about the tariff issue. We are going to continue that conversation in about 15 minutes with Grant Black from the Hammond Institute at Lindenwood. They have a event coming up very soon about this exact issue. So looking forward to that conversation. Right now, joining us on the line is our friend Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire. Virginia, there's other things I want to talk to you about, but you also have an article up about the tariff situation, of course. We were just talking to Paul Curtman in that last segment about the division, how even in the Republican Party, or even in the conservative media, there's people that are on Trump's side on this, and there are people that are being very critical, and it gets very emotional or aggressive at times on both sides. Tell us about the article. Wyoming senator defends Trump's tariffs. We haven't been able to sell one hamburger in Australia. It's the first time I've heard hamburgers brought up in the tariff debate.
So John Barrasso is a senator from Wyoming, and Wyoming is a big cattle ranch state. And so what he's talking about is the trade barriers. So we hear about tariffs, but we don't always hear about the trade barriers. So the way it works is Australia exports beef to the United States and we buy it. However, Australia does not allow the United States to export beef to their country. So you can't sell American beef in Australia at all. Tariff or not, it doesn't matter. So what they're basically, it's a completely unfair market, because the United States beef producers now have to compete against Australia to sell domestically, but they can't compete against Australia there. They're not allowed to sell anything at all. And so what the tariffs do, they're forcing Australia to come to the table and say, okay, so if you look at the tariffs and you say, okay, the calculation doesn't make sense. I don't understand why they only have a 10% tariff on us. Why are we going with 15 or whatever? If there's something that looks out of balance, it's because there are other here. And some of these are trade barriers. You're not allowed to sell a specific thing in that country. And if they are allowed to sell that same thing in our country, the only way to correct that balance is to bring them to the table and say, look, we've got to make a deal that's fair to everybody.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of, and expands the reasoning that the Trump administration is trying to put out there and make everyone aware of, that it's not just tariffs, but it's other issues like this that has put the United States at a disadvantage for a very long time. It's going to be,
for sure.
It's going to be, I don't think there's a huge argument about that. Although I really honestly have heard from some people, even on the right, that say, like, look, this isn't necessarily the most broke thing right now. We've got, in the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've got other things to fixate on. And this is,
here's the issue that with this is like, it's right now, but it's like a that you have a pipe in your house that leaks, right? And it only leaks a little bit, and you can keep a bucket under it, and if you dump the bucket out once a week, you're fine. But that you're probably 10 years away from major repair if you allow it to keep leaking, whereas you do the major repair now when you have support in Congress, and you have a limited amount of window of time to do it. No one else is going to do it because they have.
Virginia, you're cutting out pretty badly. Let's disconnect and get you back on the line here and see if we can get a better connection with Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire. Still, if you could see if we can get that cleaned up with Virginia. We'll continue that conversation. As I mentioned, Grant Black from the Hammond Institute at Lindenwood University going to join us in about 10 minutes to continue the tariff conversation. Also this afternoon, our buddy Dave Sylvester from Gutter Pros is going to be in studio with us in the 3 o'clock hour. A lot of storm damage suffered by a lot of people in the St. Louis area that the Gutter Pros have been, I'm sure that's been taking all of Dave's time. We're going to talk to him about that storm damage and their reaction to it. Also, Mike McClary from Intervine. He is going to join us at the beginning of the 3 o'clock hour, our big tech AI expert. We're going to continue the conversation with him about the Signal chat situation and some other things. I think we have Virginia back on
I think we do.
the line. Yeah, sorry about that, Virginia, but if you
no, it's okay.
You want to finish the point that you were making.
I was just saying that that Trump is in a position where he's got the support of Congress, he's got the court, who are at least going to be rational and not hard left, depending on what he does, obviously. But he also knows that no other Republican or Democrat is going to do this because they're all afraid of the political fallout. He doesn't have to worry about that. The only thing he's risking is turnover in the House and Senate at midterms. And that's bad, but he also knows that he needs to turn this around. And if you look at, Charles Payne was talking about it today, everybody's talking about the dip in the stock market. Nobody's talking about the fact that oil prices went from $76 a barrel to $65. Nobody's talking about gas prices are about to go down. Crazy, right? And there are all these other countries that are coming to the table. And so I think the biggest risk, and I posted this on X, the biggest risk to Trump's tariff strategy is the fact that very few Americans, and this includes a large number of those in elected office or who have national platforms and microphones, can actually wrap their brains around the idea that two things can be true at the same time. For example, it can be true that market drops driven by tariff-induced uncertainty are very serious and they're causing real pain to real people. At the same time, it can also be true that the tariffs are designed to be temporary and used as leverage to bring other countries to the table. And if that plan is successful, the market may take time, but it will rebound. So you see what's going on. We're never going to get to a level playing field unless somebody is willing to take the hit that implementing the tariffs will. It's coming.
I think you make a really great point that if any president has a shot at withstanding that hit and having the patience and the backbone to see it through, it's Donald Trump. But we'll see. We'll obviously see how it all plays out.
The Republicans in Congress to have a backbone, and
right.
How well that goes typically.
Talking to Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire, I mentioned the Signal chat issue, which is still out there in the headlines. We're going to talk a little bit about Signal and encrypted messaging apps and that sort of stuff with our big tech AI expert, Mike McClary, at 3 o'clock. But I also saw that you have a recent article up about the possibility that the chat leak could be linked to an iPhone feature. Can you can you explain that, please?
So you have to go back a little ways for this.
Okay.
2024, October of 2024, The Atlantic texts the Trump campaign and says, hey, we're going to run this smear story of Trump about how badly he treats veterans. Do you have any comment, basically? So Jeffrey Goldberg has emailed the Trump campaign now, right? Well, Brian Hughes, who was formerly a spokesman for the Trump campaign, currently now is a spokesman for Mike Waltz, who is the national security advisor, who all this stuff has been tied to, right? So Brian Hughes copies and pastes the email, including the signature with Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number and email on it, into a text that he sends to Waltz, because Waltz was acting as the national security advisor for the campaign. And they were like, hey, how do we want to respond to this? So ultimately, Waltz did not call Jeffrey Goldberg about the story. Instead, he waited and let them run it anyway. And then he went on CNN and said, hey, you know, we've got video of all these guys from who lost family members at Abbey Gate in 2021. let's see, we've got video of them at the Republican National Convention telling thousands and thousands of people how well they were treated by this president. And you're going to tell us that the Atlantic has something to say? Okay. So he gets on CNN and does the thing, but he never contacted Jeffrey Goldberg. However, his iPhone connected that number and automatically saved it under Brian Hughes as a contact because the number was sent from Brian Hughes directly to Mike Waltz.
And so
then when he added Brian Hughes to the Signal chat, because he's his comms guy and he's supposed to be on there, that extra number got attached to it too, and Jeffrey Goldberg got included. And that's what they're saying is what happened. And so when Mike Waltz got up on Fox News and said the number got sucked into his phone, he's not full of it. It really does happen. I don't know if it's happened to you. I've had weird, like my sister texted me a number that was for somebody else, and my phone tried to say, "Is this a new contact for this person?" I'm like, no, but it doesn't always give you a warning, and it might just say like suggested contact. But it does if you import it to a Signal chat. Signal doesn't know that it's just suggested.
Right.
It just knows that this number is attached to this account.
Right. It's the automated suggestion feature on iPhones, which we don't have. I'm a Samsung guy and I don't have that exact thing, but I do, we do have similar.
Have some sort of AI that does that.
Exactly. So
you have to be very careful with that, especially when you're on encrypted messages.
Yeah, it's saying, hey, the last time these guys were talking, this person was included, so you want to include him in this group too, right? And if you're not paying attention, now he's now he's in there. What is what's your gut feeling about the Signal issue in general? That sorry, we just had a crazy power dip here. I hope you can still hear me. The Signal issue in general, is this something that the Trump administration is going to be able to put behind them and move on from, or are we still going to be hearing about this and seeing it used by the?
I think I think the media is going to continue to use it, but I don't think it's going to get any traction because, one, especially if this is verified and that's exactly what happened and how everybody's had that happen to them. Now, is it okay that it happened at that level? No, but again, let's go back and look at what was actually revealed in that chat. Because we talked about, they talked about classified information. No, they didn't. They did not reveal anything tactical, really, other than, hey, somewhere in the world, this attack's going to happen at this time. Like they didn't say where. They didn't give a location or coordinates or anything. They didn't name the troops involved or the units involved. They didn't say where planes were taking off from or where they were going to land afterward. None of that stuff was revealed in the chat. It was just, hey, we're going to make an attack at this time. I mean, realistically, what are you going to do with that information?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
Should they have been more careful? Absolutely. But realistically, what happened here? Nothing. It's a nothing burger, and the Democrats and the media are going to keep trying to make something out of it unless they think the tariffs are going to work better. And right now, that's where they are. So you don't hear a whole lot about the Signal chat right now.
Right, because the tariff is an easier. Tariff's an easier attack for the left right now. Also, I think with the Signal situation, you keep in mind that, this is, imagine you're Pete Hegseth. You're brand new on the job. You're just getting used to everything. They say to you like, hey, here's one of the approved communication methods that we use to, when we're all talking to each other, this Signal chat thing. So go ahead.
The Biden administration is who implemented it.
Right.
This was all implemented under the Biden administration.
Exactly. And then he sends his first text and it's like
hey.
I'm not saying he shouldn't have. I'm not saying that people didn't pay attention as much as they should have. I'm not saying a mistake wasn't made. Certainly was. Certainly needs to be addressed. Not trying to brush it under the rug. I'm just saying, put yourself in that position. You're brand new. You get the list. Like, okay, here's the apps. Here's the systems that we use to communicate with each other. Here's one of them right here. You send your first message and it's national. it's international news about what a huge
Right.
mistake you've made. It's like, I was just doing what they told me to do. I was just following what the
Yeah.
orientation paper said.
Exactly. So yeah, and again, like they were very careful. They didn't reveal any really sensitive information.
Right.
They might have revealed information they didn't want Jeffrey Goldberg to know. But
Right.
again, realistically, even if that entire thing had been made public 2 hours prior to the strike, which is when Goldberg said he had it 2 hours prior. If he had gone public with it right then, literally nothing would have happened.
Nothing could have changed. Yeah, no.
Because no one could do anything with that information.
Yeah, that's why the argument that there was classified or sensitive, dangerous information that was revealed is not an honest part of that conversation.
I mean, by the time anybody figured out, like they named the type of planes that were going to do carry out the mission. By the time someone was able to break through whatever encrypted sites they had to figure out where all of the American planes of that type were in the world, the attack would have been over.
Yeah.
Like there's not, you can't do that. It's not going to happen.
Yep. Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire. Thank you as always for your time, my friend. We will talk to you again next week. Have a great rest of your day.
Sure, you too.
That is Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire. Check out her articles every day at thedailywire.com and our website, newstalkstl.com. All right, continuing the conversation about tariffs, the Hammond Institute, great team that we've worked with many times in the past over there at Lindenwood University, has an event coming to town on April 24th regarding this exact issue. We're going to talk about that event with Grant Black from the Hammond Institute. He joins us live in studio next on Colombo Company.
What happens next?
Because of that Afghanistan withdrawal, we have damaged our credibility.
Happens right here.
He was texting war plans.
Nobody was texting war plans.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
New Creation Dental Care and Dr. Matt Boscia is the Colombo family dentist. And if you're looking for a new family dentist for you, I cannot recommend Dr. Boscia and his team enough. One-stop shop for all your family's dental needs, now including the incredible all-on-4 full arch implant procedure, full mouth restoration that can give you back your smile in as little as 1 day. No more suffering with damaged or missing teeth or poor fitting dentures. This is just an awesome service that they be this deep into it. This is still an issue that is so important that impacts everybody, every country. It's, an international issue. And as you mentioned, it's one of those issues that doesn't get the conversation it probably deserves. And therefore, people don't have the education or the understanding. They hear people in 60-second clips yelling at each other on television. One person's, saying why this is so good, and one person saying, why it's going to ruin the world. And it's like, who do you believe, and how do you educate yourself? So coming to this event on April 24th at Lindenwood is just perfect timing. And Dr. Nicholas Zebarth, I hope I'm saying his name right, from Mizzou, is going to be leading the discussion, but it's going to be a very interactive event. Correct? People will be able to get their questions asked and answered at this event.
That's exactly right. So everybody who registers, we're going to reach out to ahead of the event, allow you to sort of have some time to think about some question in advance, submit questions. We're going to kind of compile those, kind of look at the themes and that kind of thing, and people will be able to share, questions and have his feedback. I think he's going to be a great speaker. He's a new endowed chair in macroeconomics at Mizzou. He's has a strong economic history background. So I think he has a lot of great context thinking about this issue of tariffs in terms of really be able to hopefully break this down. What are they? What do they really mean? How have they been used? How we might think about different policies with them, and what we really think the economic effects of them are. And so I think it'll bring a really objective, balanced view to this conversation that I hope people can appreciate because of all of the different sides and all of the things going on.
It really couldn't be any better, and it come at a more important time. Obviously this has gone into overdrive since this issue hit the news and Trump made his announcement last week. But were you hearing there at the Lindenwood community, staff, students, other people in the community there, that this was an issue that people were looking for education, information on, and that's one of the reasons that you decided to go with this?
Most definitely. As soon as the administration came in, started talking about tariffs, obviously they were used in the prior administration. So it wasn't, I think, totally unexpected that this, this kind of policies would have been on the table. But I think the speed and the depth that we're seeing are probably unexpected to a lot of people. And so it was certainly questions being asked in classes of students, certainly conversations around the lunch table on campus, people asking a lot of questions and, concerned and curious. And so this just seemed like an important issue to really try to bring to the public in a way that was meaningful, hopefully down to earth, that people could understand. And try to get questions answered about what does this really mean and how does this impact our life? One of the things you mentioned earlier, people really don't hear about tariffs very much. They're always there. They're always in the background, but they're not so much a newsworthy thing. Because usually we're not tweaking them too much, or they don't seem too severe. We haven't seen kind of large trade wars in quite some time. And so they were sort of a quiet thing. And so for most people, it's not something that was on their radar. And now it feels much different. And I think people are wrestling with these extreme changes, the drastic increases in tariffs, all of the retaliatory kind of behaviors going from every direction. And what does this sort of mean for my life?
Absolutely.
So I think those are the kinds of things. Hey, how does this affect inflation? What does this mean for my bottom line in terms of real income? Are the price tags going to look different at the store? And am I going to have goods that I can get? And so I think those are the kinds of questions we'd really love to cover in this event coming up.
Yeah. And I just appreciate that there's an organization like the Hammond Institute that looks into these type of issues, because like you said, tariff issue might not have been like the sexy thing in the headlines, but it's important, it's impactful, it's something that people need to know more about, whether this was happening or not. And now all of that has just been proven by what's happened over the last week or so with this being thrust into the headlines. We only got a couple minutes left here. We are with Dr. Grant Black from the Hammond Institute at Lindenwood University. The event is happening April 24th at Lindenwood. We have the information on our website, newstalkstl.com. But if people want to learn more about the event, if they want to get tickets, what are all the best ways to learn more about this event and also learn more about the Hammond Institute?
Yeah, so obviously they can get information and link right back kind of to our site off of your radio station's website. They can go to hammondinstitute.org, and that's really easy, and you can just look for upcoming events. There'll be a page devoted just to this. You can see flyers if you want to share information with others, and you can reserve a space through Eventbrite. And so you can go there. It's all free. It's open to the public, so it's really easy. And we look forward to seeing people. And you can come in person, and you can also join virtually if needed.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Grant Black from the Hammond Institute. Great talking with you. Can't wait for this event. Get all the details on our website, newstalkstl.com. Mike McClary, next.
Experience the exhilarating atmosphere of a Cardinals game. Join the sea of red in the wave around the stadium. Feel the rush of excitement as a home run lights up the sky with fireworks, bringing the whole ballpark to their feet. Nothing beats the thrill of watching the Cards get the W with the final out at the plate. It's more than a game. It's an experience. Visit Cardinals.com for tickets and info. St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
There is no better way to enjoy America's favorite pastime than cheering on the Cardinals with your family at Busch Stadium. From the thrill of watching the game to the kid-friendly activities, food, and fun, the ballpark has it all. Make magical memories as you cheer together for every home run, double play, and Cards win. Your family's summer tradition starts here at Busch Stadium. Grab your tickets today at Cardinals.com. St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Confused about tariffs and trade policies? The Hammond Institute at Lindenwood University and News Talk STL present economist Dr. Nicholas L. Zebarth in their H.F. Langenberg Memorial Speaker Series. Join us April 24th as Dr. Zebarth breaks down what tariffs really are, how they work, and separates economic fact from fiction. Don't miss this chance to expand your economic understanding with one of Missouri's leading experts. Reserve your spot now at newstalkstl.com.
Hi, Sean Long from STL Fenceworks. A new fence or deck is an investment in your home and your lifestyle. But how do you ensure that you're getting the most out of that investment? At STL Fenceworks, we know the key is satisfaction. Satisfaction means getting a fence or deck that not only meets your needs, but exceeds your expectations. Satisfaction means working with a team that cares about your project as much as you do. Satisfaction means having confidence in the quality of your new fence or deck, knowing that it was built with the best of materials and workmanship. STL Fenceworks, your satisfaction is our passion. And for me, satisfaction is knowing that providing for your family is how I provide for mine. Visit stlfenceworks.com and experience the satisfaction in making your backyard dreams into a reality.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
KLGY HD3 Clay, K270BW Belfast, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting with President Trump in Washington. Taking questions from the press, the president announced high-level direct talks will be held with Iran on Saturday. Also, negotiations continue for the release by Hamas of those remaining hostages. European leaders contemplating responses to new stringent U.S. tariffs.
Europe could broaden the trade war by targeting big tech, a category more vulnerable to retaliation because the U.S. exports more than it imports. The EU response could include attacks on digital giants such as Google, Apple, Meta, Amazon and Microsoft, as French officials have recommended. Outgoing German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says the EU must show we have strong muscles, but British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said his government would react with cool and calm heads, telling business leaders in London that he hoped to strike a trade deal with the Trump administration that would see the tariffs rescinded. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Also at townhall.com, swollen rivers flood towns in the U.S. South after days-long deluge of rain. Julie Walker has more.
Governor Andy Beshear says the Kentucky River in Frankfort has crested, almost breaking a record.
What we have seen is rescue after rescue after rescue.
Other rivers crested to almost near record levels, and some are still rising, says National Weather Service meteorologist Mark Jarvis.
You had the right atmospheric conditions come together to produce extremely heavy rainfall and produce catastrophic flooding.
Officials caution people not to drive through floodwaters and heed evacuation orders. I'm Julie Walker.
Earlier, President Trump welcoming the reigning champion Los Angeles Dodgers to the White House, and the national basketball title game between Florida and Houston will be tonight in San Antonio. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The world is spiraling out of control. Financial markets are extremely volatile. Global conflicts are escalating and inflation is everywhere. How do you protect yourself when everything's uncertain? The answer is gold. Specifically, the 2025 1-ounce Gold Eagle in flawless NGC MS70 condition from Global Coin. It's a lifeline in these chaotic times. A rock-solid asset that has outperformed for millennia. Call 888-800-1045 right now to lock in this stunning coin for dealer cost. Just $3,199. Free shipping. No sales tax. Secure this tangible asset you can hold today. The first 100 callers get a free MS70 2025 Silver Eagle. 2 U.S. minted legal tender coins to shield you from the storm. Global Coin stands by you with a 30-day return policy because your security matters. Go to globalcoindeal.com or call 888-800-1045 today. They're knowledgeable, professional, and trustworthy. No gimmicks, just incredible coins at incredible prices. 888-800-1045.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A morning freeze on the way for Tuesday, low in the city around 32, but outlying areas will dip to the upper 20s, low 30s. We'll rebound nicely with light winds and sunny skies, a high of 55 degrees and a dry day for Tuesday. But we get into a couple chances for some rain and thunder showers on Wednesday, a high of 68. Slight chance for a couple showers in the morning, and then the evening could see a shower or thunderstorm. It'll be a little warmer and a little breezy, though, for Wednesday, despite the cloud cover and a couple chances for rain. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Temple.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Fox News commentary.
The freak out over President Trump's tariffs is understandable but overblown. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
National security is at risk, and China controls most of the world's supply of antimony, a critical metal for military and defense technology. Military Metals Corp is taking action and securing a Western-controlled supply with projects in Europe and North America. Critical minerals are the backbone of modern defense. Now's the time to pay attention. The stock trades on the OTC under ticker MILIF. Call your broker today or go to www.militarymetalscorp.com to learn more.
It is not taking kindly to Trump's tariffs. Many Americans are panicked, worried about their retirement, and I understand the reaction. However, do not let the fear-mongering from the liberal media and Democrats spin you into complete panic. Many of the same folks and outlets who are now in full freakout didn't bat an eyelash when our economy and everything else was effectively shut down for months and in some cases years over the glorified cold that was COVID. What did we get out of that? A tanked economy, broken supply chain, shuttered businesses, and joblessness that could only be remedied with mailbox money and inflation-causing stimulus. These tariffs are a different scenario. President Trump knows that we cannot continue to allow the world to rip us off, and he knows the only way to get America building, creating, and job-making is to put the world on notice. They will no longer get a free pass here. So I understand, but trust the process. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show, Tommy Lahren is Fearless, at Outkick.com.
Here's my problem.
Completely agree with your sentiments.
He talks about we're divided. Well, yeah, we are. And we need to wake up as a country and realize what's going on.
101.9 and 94.1.
Number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Jam-packed 2 o'clock hour there. If you missed any of it, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast. We put the show on as a podcast right after we get off the air every day. We put it on basically every podcast platform. So wherever you get podcasts, just make sure that you are subscribed to Colombo and Company on that platform, and you'll never miss anything that happens on the show. We talk to Paul Curtman about the tariff situation. We talked to Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire. We just wrapped up a conversation with Grant Black from the Hammond Institute at Lindenwood. They've got that great event coming to Lindenwood on April 24th, dealing specifically with the tariff issue. Perfect timing on that. Get the details on how to attend that event by going to our website, newstalkstl.com. All right. We continue the great conversations with Mike McClary from Intervine.com, our AI big tech expert here on the show. And I don't know, Mike, is there anything to talk about out there today? Anything happening in the news?
Hello, hey, Onite Olambo K.
Oh, wow. What are we doing Pig Latin for? I haven't heard Pig Latin in
my own
so
version
long.
of encryption.
Personal encryption. You know what? I used to think it was we're going to talk as we've mentioned throughout the show. I want to talk to Mike about the Signal app, that issue, but more specifically, just the encryption messaging services in general, because we've heard about all these different types of app, the WhatsApp and now Signal and these other things and these super secret safe ways to communicate, but then they're super secret safe ways to communicate, but then we're always learning about, what was said in these super secret. So I don't know how I guess the human element is always there to mess things up. But I got to say, with the Pig Latin thing, I always thought that I would be somebody who it would be super cool to be like one of those like super spies that like could speak in coded languages or could decode secret messages or things like that. But I quickly learned, like, just looking into that topic and things throughout history where there's been like lost languages and people are trying to translate or decode things. I'm way too stupid.
You quickly learned Ixnay on that.
Yeah, I quickly learned Ixnay on my ability to be at the top level of spy work.
I'm just hoping that someday I'll be able to interpret women. That's all that I am. Because if I can do that,
another conversation. That's a whole other show.
There are certain tablets, I believe, out there. There's one of them. There's a book written. It's got some of the weirdest, funkiest pictures you've ever seen in it, and it's got this weird language that no one's been able to decode. And I think they finally come to the conclusion that it was written by a crazy person, and it really is gibberish.
Oh,
but
wow.
People studied it for like 50 years. I'll think of the name for the next call, but
I wonder if
imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine messing with people in the future. Like, I'm going to come up with my own language, make it gibberish, and hope someone tries to decode it in 50 years.
Yeah, I'm also drawing a blank because I haven't thought about this issue in a while, but I wonder if it's the same thing I'm thinking of. There's a document, a famous document out there. It's got a name, some fancy name, and it's never been able to be decoded. And like that story and others like it were like the inspiration of me, like thinking like, oh man, I should study this stuff, and how do people communicate in code, and then how can you break the codes whenever you're looking at it. Like I'll be super smart. Yeah.
Maybe it's in Esperanto.
Not going to be super smart.
Not Esperanto.
No, it's not that.
Or is it the Voynich manuscript?
Yes, that is it.
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
what I was talking about as well. Yeah.
Yes, and it's never been decoded. There's been all the best in the world have tried to do it, and you know what? At the end, if if it does come out that it literally is just gibberish, I won't be surprised because it's never been cracked.
We talked about doing that to our kids for the first couple of years, just speaking in gibberish around the house and wondering what would happen as they progress.
Yeah. Have there been studies done on twins that have created their own language growing up? Like they just make up their own words as they learn, as they evolve, and now they basically just can create their own language. I guess you could do that with any baby. You just got
There's so many things out that we don't understand. There's a whole nother subject on how kids who are, I believe, deaf or non-communicative can actually have been proven to show like some psychic abilities.
Wow.
It's crazy. Like there's like real research on this stuff, but maybe that's not what I'm here to talk
Yeah,
about.
well, I've gone down that rabbit hole though. It's a whole lot of fun, but I'm not your guy to crack the codes or explain it very well. But I don't know if you want to talk specifically about Signal or anything about this issue specifically. I had more. I think this shines the light on a larger topic of, we hear words, encrypted technology and encrypted communications. And I think all of us think like, oh, that means it's like it's secret and nobody else can see it. But I don't think anybody else really understands what that means. When you hear about encrypted messaging or technology or whatever it may be.
I mean, most of it all depends on like having keys. And keys are just anywhere from like a digit, a few digits to a whole word to a bunch of whole other, combination of characters or hexadecimal. And these keys are just used by the person sending it and the person receiving it. And then I don't even know what those keys are. It's all handled electronically, but those keys are needed in order to decrypt everything. That's the most common type. And it's still incredibly complex to break. And I believe they expected it not to be broken for another 100 years, like the 128-bit encryption right now. And Signal uses they use multiple encryption methods. Like it is a really hard platform to like hack into because of the different ways that they are constantly changing the keys around randomly, and the way that it handles, if they even think that something's been breached, it changes things around and it thinks of ways to change things. It's a really, really hard system to break into. The one thing that'll always be the issue, is you kind of brought it up, is people.
Yeah.
People are going to make mistakes.
Yeah, because the app didn't get hacked or cracked as you're illustrating. Somebody just copied the wrong person on the message. It wasn't like they broke into the system in any way. But here's, I guess, to put it at a basic level, when I use, the regular messaging, that the text messaging that's built in on my phone, on, Samsung phones and iPhones, and I send you a text message, what is different about that than if I send you a message through Signal or WhatsApp? Like, I understand that that WhatsApp and Signal and those type of things, those are harder to hack into and break into. But is this a thing in general? Like, are people breaking into our normal text messages, and that's why that's necessary to have? I mean, I understand why the government has it, but like, I don't know. It just all seems to me like, is somebody really spying on little old me and my text messages? And do I really
in general,
need somebody
no,
like Signal?
They're not. There's two people that do hacking. One is government, and we kind of know why they do it. And the other are people who are trying to like do financial crimes against you, steal your passwords, your credit cards. Those are the two groups. No one else is really trying to get in there. And the difference between like sending a text message and using an app is just the level of encryption. But even simple text messages, like they're all using this like RSC protocol, I think is what it's called, which is a pretty good encryption. There's also encryption. I think it's called pretty good encryption, which is like incredible. And I believe that it was illegal to use it for a while because people in the United States were using this.
The old PGI, pretty good encryption. No,
and
PGE, excuse me. See how stupid I am? I don't even know how to spell encryption.
It's incredibly difficult to break into these unless you have like supercomputers. And so here's this collision course we're heading towards right now. And AI, when you add in quantum computing, which gives it incredible power, is pretty much getting smart enough, and will be smart enough where it can just try every combination of every key possible ever created instantaneously. That's the fear. That's what AI and quantum computing, it's a combination of those two that is making everyone afraid of what's going to happen to all of our encrypted data, because AI will be able to get into it. And people already know it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Throw enough power at it.
And if AI, I mean, and then, I guess the next level of trying to solve that problem is using AI to help create the next level of
Exactly.
but if AI can create it, then AI can hack into it.
So I feel like we're back to the whole thing about computer viruses, where you had people like selling these like pop-up blockers and these virus tools, and you found out that a lot of these companies were the ones creating.
Yeah, they were the ones putting it on there. Yeah.
I think we're kind of going to get to that point because AI is kind of fighting itself, but they've already come out with new standards that are AI, like they're called post-quantum encryption standards, so that once quantum computing has got to the point where it can break our existing encryption, there needs to be new methods in place that quantum computing cannot break the encryption. One of them we hinted at about 2 months ago. We talked about quantum teleportation. Where that is where you have what's called quantum entanglement. Anyone who knows a little bit about physics, where you have these particles that when they become entangled, where no matter how far apart they are, whatever happens to one particle, it could be like a light year away, the other particle does the exact same thing. And by entangling these particles, you could kind of have two people on opposite sides of the galaxy being able to send messages because they can see what's happening to their paired particle that was sent out. And the reason this is so important is because that's going to allow for very secure communication, because the moment someone reads or observes these particles, they break down. So it's kind of like a one-time only. You can see this message, and if someone else even tries to hack into it, it completely degrades, breaks down, and stops that stream. And so that's one of the ways they're looking into solving the encryption issues with these. Basically, quantum teleportation is one of the best methods we have coming out in the future.
Sounds like we might all just have to start being honest with each other, because you're not going to be able to hide the lies anymore. Talking to Mike McClary from Intervine, talking about, we've talked a lot about how the phone companies out there and the apps on your phone and how they're all trying to gather your data, and told stories about how you have a conversation about something and then all of a sudden you're getting ads for that something, even if you didn't even necessarily Google search it or email somebody about it. If you just talked about it around your phone, all of a sudden, you're getting ads for those products or those services. Do these text messaging apps, and then like other things, like just to broaden it out, when people think they're being safe, they're taking that extra step. I'm not going to let the man spy on me. You're not going to get my data. And they use an app like Signal, or they search incognito mode, or things like that. Are you truly hiding from the data collectors out there when you're using these services? Maybe there's a big difference between, maybe it's silly to include incognito mode in a conversation about, the Signal app, but you know what I mean? Like, people always trying to use a certain system or app or whatever, or, device that's hiding your data from the people that are trying to get it. Does it work?
You're putting up barriers is what you're doing. You're just adding an additional barrier that someone has to, kind of get around or jump through an additional hoop in order to get to it. Incognito doesn't really do anything as far as people stealing your data. All it really does is keep your family members from knowing what sites you visited on your house. So it encrypts it,
deletes your
search
history.
Yeah, pretty much so. Now, if you want some basic computer, internet communication security, I would get a VPN, a virtual private network. And then I would use an app like Signal, or even Facebook's built-in messaging is encrypted. Believe it or not, like there's a mode you can turn on and make it encrypted. Those are incredibly complex to break. If you have like a VPN, no one's going to see your web activity. And if you use Signal, WhatsApp, Facebook's built-in messaging, you have a really robust security system that, unless the government is really coming after you and throwing the resources at it, no marketing company, no cable company is able to see that, because that's one of the issues right now with AI and this as well. Like, I didn't even mention this. Another problem AI and encryption has is that AI needs, so far, text data in order to comprehend it and do all the things we need to do. Summarize this 472 insurance document. It needs to be in text. And once we have all this encryption in place, AI is going to have a hard time doing things for us now because it needs to have it unencrypted. And so there's another layer of issues, kind of that's a minor one, but it's minor to you and I, but it's nothing they're dealing with. But yeah, these companies, they have a hard time getting through those basic layers of, like I said, a VPN and some kind of encrypted service for messaging.
It sounds like we're right. I mean, it sounds like we're on the cusp of the conversation completely changing. The way that we encrypted things or hid things in the past is not even going to be relevant anymore with the evolution of AI. And if we are going to continue to try to do that stuff, it's going to be through all new systems. Is that fair to say that this whole issue is about to massively evolve anyway?
They've given us 5 to 10 years, they said, before AI has solved our most difficult encryption. That's very common right now, that people thought was unbreakable. So we have to have it solved between 5 and 10 years. But here's the thing. What have we seen take place in the past several months or 6 months, whatever? Things happen a lot faster in AI than anyone ever thought.
No kidding. Like crazy fast. Talking to Mike McClary from Intervine, and you touched on VPNs. We don't have enough time to dig into that topic, but I'm glad you brought it up because I think maybe next week or in the coming weeks, I think we should talk about VPNs because anybody, if you've been on, if you watch a lot of videos on YouTube, you've probably heard ads for VPNs or seen commercials for them or whatever it may be. But I think that's another system that people, some people completely understand how it works, and I understand how I've never used one. I have the basic understanding of how they work, but I've never delved into it myself. How difficult it is. If you want to use one, how difficult is that? What's the learning curve on something like that? And what does it truly do for you? Because I don't know. I think VPNs are one of those things, like AI education is just one of those things that people should start to be more familiar with and have a better understanding of in this new crazy technological world.
Yeah, let's talk about that next week. I can simplify that so people understand it and know how to use it and make it not so scary.
Yeah, and the best thing is if like there's a movie on Netflix that isn't available in the United States, but it is in England, you can still watch it. You can watch right?
Yeah, exactly. I use it right now to use AI tools that aren't allowed, get this, and I hope they're not listening, that aren't allowed in the state of Illinois. Illinois has different rules about what, and so I use some
really
video
Illinois region locked from AI knowledge.
I kid you not. I use a tool called
unfortunately
CapCut.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's one of the most common video editors out on TikTok and other short form videos called CapCut. They have some really great free like AI features that you can use for editing. But if I'm connected to my Illinois IP address, I can't use them because Illinois has some weird, funky rules about AI tools like that.
So Illinois really is a People's Republic of Illinois.
It really is. It really is. Mike, before we let you go, imagine with all the weather that we've seen here in the St. Louis area, that the need for a reliable light source in your home and in your vehicle, flashlights, lanterns, headlamps have been top of mind for a lot of people. So remind folks about your company Intervine and the great offer right now to get those products at a huge discount.
Yeah, if you need the best, and I mean the best and brightest LED camping lanterns, flashlights, headlamps, or just batteries, go to intervine.com, intervine.com. Use discount code TONY, TONY, to save 25%. And we say this all the time, and we mean this. We had some people take us up on it last month. If you know of anyone who can't afford to buy some lighting, but you feel like they need it, like when a tornado storms it, shoot us a message. Let us know. We can help them out as well, because we want to make sure everyone has light, especially when a tornado or some kind of storm comes and hits.
That's why it's so important to support a local business like yours, Mike, because you're in the community and you understand, what people are going through. And I think that's super cool. And just another reason to check out all the great products at intervine.com and use my name, Tony, for that 25% discount. Awesome stuff. Mike, thanks for your time as always, my friend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Goodbye, gay.
That wasn't the best use of the pig Latin, but thank you. And again, Intervine is Intervine, Intervine.com. Go there, check out all the great products. Use my name, Tony, to get 25% off everything. Speaking of storms and damage that has been done and the impact that has been done here locally, Dave Sylvester and his team at Gutter Pros have been on the front lines of that. We're going to check in with Dave next here on Colombo and Company.
Down and take a walk with the sister the moon. With a pale lighter to fill up your room. You've been living underground, eating from a can. You've been running away from what you don't understand. Look,
I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
If you are looking for a new vehicle, Weber Chevrolet is the place to go for so many reasons, none bigger than the fact that nobody is more focused on customer service and taking care of the customer and doing right by the customer than the team at all three Weber Chevrolet dealerships. And that shows. The proof is in the pudding. At the end of every month, at the end of every year, whenever these reports come out about customer service ratings or reputation scores, Weber Chevrolet consistently is number one across the board, and it's not even close when it comes to Chevrolet dealerships across the entire Midwest. So nobody's going to give you a better deal on a new or used vehicle. Nobody's going to give you more on your trade-in, and nobody is going to take care of you in that vehicle for the entire time that you own it better than the team at Weber Chevrolet. Their service department, at least for me and my family and how much they've done for us, that is really what stands Weber Chevrolet apart from the rest. You know, you don't stick around in the same community for nearly 125 years like Weber Chevrolet has if you're not doing right by your customers and taking care of that community. So if you're looking for a new vehicle, check out what's happening at all three local Weber Chevrolet dealerships by going to weberchevrolet.com.
Attention, reptile lovers. Ready to discover your next scaly friend? Welcome to the Show Me Reptile Shop, your ultimate destination for fascinating reptiles and exotic pets. With 3 convenient locations in Troy, St. Peters, and Springfield. We have an amazing selection of snakes, lizards, turtles, and more. Whether you're a seasoned herpetologist or a curious beginner, we've got the perfect pet waiting for you. Show Me Reptile Shop. Visit us in Troy, St. Peters, or Springfield, and online at showmereptileshow.com.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
Apologies in advance if my commentary makes you a little sick, especially if you're eating about this time. The analogy involves nations, how they're treating us. Yes, the trade war. Other countries have been hitting our nation with massive tariffs. Trump says enough. He wants to protect Americans. But he's charging the other nations only half of what they charge us. More than fair. Yet leftist globalists say we should do as we've been doing. Do nothing, just take it. And that brings me to the analogy. Do you know what ikizukuri is? It's a Japanese delicacy, illegal in Britain, Germany, and in some states. Ikizukuri uses live seafood, usually fish. It is brought to your table on a platter with the head still on. And here comes the analogy to the punishing tariffs. Ikizukuri is served as the fish is still alive, gulping. You see the gills still moving, and yet that's how you eat it. We're like that fish, pretty much gutted, barely alive, but for how long? Ikizukuri? Anyone?
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
April is big at Lit Cigar Lounge, the place to be to watch the Masters, plus a major UFC fight, and of course baseball, all while enjoying a premium cigar and whiskeys, TVs in every direction. Make your plans. Check the Lit Cigar Facebook for more details. Plus, you can order food from Napoli Brothers pizza and pasta delivered within minutes right to your table. By the way, we're in the season for great patio dining. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta has your table waiting.
This is News Talk STL.
There is a speakeasy in Cottleville, but you need a passcode. So go to the Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook, get your passcode to one of the hottest news spots in the area. Amazing food, 7 hotel rooms, 2-bedroom penthouse, and a speakeasy. I got my passcode. Get yours. Let's enjoy the speakeasy in Cottleville. You get your code by going to Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
With Larry Connors USA, you not only get news, analysis, opinion, you also get education.
Larry Connors USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
You'll say we've got nothing in common.
Man, it's been a crazy show today, jam-packed. If you missed any of it, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast. It's the best way to make sure that you never miss anything that happens here on the show. We put the show out as a podcast right after we get off the air every day on basically every podcast platform. So just make sure you're subscribed to Colombo and Company on your favorite podcast platform. All right, rolling along with the important guests. I love it when company comes over. Dave Sylvester from Gutter Pros in studio with us. Thank you for coming in, and also thank you for taking a break from what I'm sure is a hectic work schedule that you have had here lately.
Have you had any sleep since last Wednesday?
It's drastically less than normal, but we'll live with it.
Yeah, so we talk to Dave at least once a month, and sometimes when there's severe weather like there has been here recently, it is sometimes a little more often, but it's been at least 2 or 3 weeks since the last time we talked to you. Yeah. And we're literally having the same conversation.
I know. It's like, the same weather pattern.
It has never stopped.
I know.
It's just been one after another.
Yeah, sure has.
With the wind and the rain and the hail. So yeah, like what's the latest that you guys are dealing with? Has it slowed down at all, or has this just continued to just build on itself?
It's a barrage. It's a barrage. And, some of the folks that suffered the severe damage from the tornadoes are just starting to get on there. They're starting to get their legs underneath them again. Storm damage that, insurance agents, adjusters haven't made it out. Some of them are still a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks out from getting their adjuster there. So they're kind of scrambling, and I feel bad for them. Mm-hmm. I especially feel bad when somebody comes in from out of town and, I think they call them the goobers on Vic's show, but they just come into town and if the people sign with them right on the spot, then they're stuck.
They're stuck. We have friends who live in Peevely.
Oh,
and their homes got hit hard. There are some sightings there where it looks like someone just took a machine gun and shot all the siding on a whole subdivision full of homes. And our friend mentioned on Sunday that folks were coming in from Texas, saying, "Oh yeah, we'll take care of you here."
And the scary
we got a
thing
local
is,
office. Oh yeah,
a local office. They're only local until they're done with the few jobs they get, and then they're gone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always worry about homeowners; they get stuck with that. And if they're gone in Texas, who's going to fix their problem?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And like you're saying, Stel, sometimes that wind comes in and it knocks out 2 walls. 2 walls are riddled.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 walls look normal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a battle. It's a battle, and they panic. They don't know what to do. I feel so bad for them.
Yeah, and it's so widespread. I mentioned this last week, I think. Whenever we during spring break, when we took the kids down to the lake, and we not only went to the Lake of the Ozarks, but we also went up to the Branson area for one day. Just the entire state of everywhere you go, you can see the damage.
Yeah.
It's just so widespread across the state and across the Midwest. We were talking a little bit off the air. I think this is something that's very helpful for people that are still trying to figure out if there's been damage done to the house and how much and what to do. You were talking about some of the the indicators that if you had certain size hail, or if you experienced if where you live experienced a certain thing, then you may be a little bit more vulnerable and should be really maybe looking hard. What are some of those things that people?
Yeah, you and I were talking off air, and we said quarter size hail. And I was thinking about that after I said it. Sometimes a little bit smaller than that, depending on the speed of the wind, it hitting your house can shatter your siding. So if your vinyl siding is shattered, sometimes you also have a roof issue, and so that's something to consider. So it's wind, it's tornadoes, it's hail.
Yeah,
it's all those
so
things.
If you're in an area that had close to quarter size hail or larger,
you're looking at potential.
You're in more of the danger zone than maybe somebody who didn't. And then obviously, like with our house, I'm always worried because we have such these
those
big
monster
trees,
branches. Yeah,
exactly. In our yard and in our neighbor's yard that's hanging over everybody's house. And I would imagine that with all the wind that we've experienced, a lot of the damage has, obviously come from hail and wind, but also from tree branches.
I know you guys talk about Hanson's Tree Service. We don't have any affiliation with them at all, but I always recommend them if people's branch, sometimes you can look it up and see dead wood. It ought to be handled, and that can, it's like your house when we came out there the first time.
Yeah.
You had a tree branch come down and whack that gutter until it
Before
wasn't
I
even
owned
working.
it. Yeah. Before I owned the house, we inherited that
totally an issue.
That gutter issue because it never got properly repaired from a tree branch falling on the house and denting our gutters. And thank goodness for Dave and his team at Gutter Pros for taking care of that for us. Has siding damage from the hail and the wind, has that been the number one thing that you guys are responding to recently, or is it across the board with this?
It's kind of across the board. And I want people to realize that those that didn't get storm damage, that still have gutter issues or whatever, we're still we're super responsive to them as well. We don't want them to feel left out. That's a really vulnerable thing. You think, well, all they're going to do is go after the siding damage. No, we're very much interested in helping folks that are just having regular gutter problems as well, and sometimes, as I mentioned to you before, there's some rotted wood that's up in behind your soffit fascia. So those the winds get up in there and they rip the gutter off. Well, that's when you can see you got rotted wood.
Is there any way to know ahead of time if you have that problem until it's exposed by something like the wind or whatever?
There is some indicator, and that's if you look up and you can see your gutters are pulled away from the house. If they're kind of pulled out and they're kind of, you can see a space between your gutter and your fascia board, then you can kind of tell that something might be off. And it's not necessarily the whole side of the house. It might just be a 10, 12-foot piece where that board's gone bad. So that should be addressed, but that will ruin an entire side of a gutter because it'll kink it, fall off, that kind of thing. So
is there any particular region of the metro area that seems to have been hit harder than the rest?
Yeah. Imperial, Arnold, Peevely, Festus. And I just started hearing some news out of Hillsborough. I hadn't even thought about Hillsborough, but Hillsborough got hit.
So,
and then you got to think about the folks on the east side of the river as well that also had some serious damage. One of the guys that works in our office, he's in O'Fallon, Illinois, and his house just got.
I think Greenville got hit too.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked to anybody in Greenville yet. But those areas are just slammed.
Are you hearing any concern from customers because it has been just so repetitive and one after another that, like, oh my gosh, if I call somebody now, it's just going to get torn up again next week? Like, is that a concern that you've heard from people, or any
not this time around? But you raise a great point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and I'm not saying to do that.
You shouldn't be.
You should never put off anything.
Yeah.
Even if you think you're only putting it off for a week or two to see how the rest of the weather plays out. But I could just imagine that there's a lot of that going on right now with this. It just seems like it's just been this endless assault that hopefully looks like it could maybe actually be coming towards a bit of an end.
I hope so.
We're still in April. We're still in April in St. Louis, so it's we're never totally out of the woods. But hopefully, this one after another with these severe storms,
oh my goodness,
is hopefully soon to be behind us. In the meantime, remind folks, because Gutter Pros, not just the best place for gutter repair and new gutter installation, but as you mentioned, siding, fascia, soffit. You guys do so much there at Gutter Pros.
I wanted to point out, you always say, what's the website? Gutterpros.com. And I get kind of chewed out sometimes because I don't emphasize the fact that our real name is Gutter Pros and Exteriors.com. So we own both of those websites. But gutterpros.com is so easy to remember.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, is it gutterprosconstruction.com? No, it's gutterpros.com or gutterprosandexteriors.com.
Yeah.
So
Just remember gutterpros.com.
and you'll get it all.
But
right?
remember that gutterpros.com
Thank you.
also includes siding and fascia and soffit. And so
we'll do the board work. We'll do all that crazy stuff for you.
And I'm sure you've gotten plenty of residential calls, but also small business owners. It's something to keep in mind. You know, if you own a small business and you own a building, that same issues.
Yeah. Even custom profiles. We do a lot of that crazy stuff that sometimes when the building is fabricated, it comes with these crazy style gutters that are all part of the roof line. We do that.
Yeah.
We have the capability of doing all that stuff. So industrial gutters is a big one.
Well, Dave, really appreciate your time as always, my friend. It is great to see you. Dave Sylvester from Gutter Pros, gutterpros.com. And it's not just gutters, it's gutters, siding, fascia, soffit, all of it there at Gutter Pros.
Amen.
Yeah. Great to see you, buddy. Thank you
nice
so
to meet
much.
you again still.
Don't mean
Good to see you.
Yeah, sorry, you got to go back out on the streets.
Oh, that's all right. Hey, I'm built for this.
And get back at it. But I definitely appreciate your time to
Tony.
give us the update here. That's going to about do it for Stella and I. Colombo and Company back tomorrow at 2. I mentioned subscribing to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget about our brand new app, the new and improved station app. Speaking of podcasts, through the app, you can access all of our show podcasts right there on the app. You can message us directly here in the studio. You can link directly to all of our social media platforms. So if you don't have the new app, make sure you do. Make sure you have the most updated version. If you've never gotten the News Talk STL app, now is the perfect time to do so. All right, Sal and I back tomorrow at 2. The O'Reilly Report next, then the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show on News Talk STL.
Experience history as it comes alive at the Champ Clark Memorial VFW Post 5553 History Day, April 12th in Bowling Green. Presenters and reenactors will transport you through America's war eras. For more info, call 573-470-9066.
To have a roof over your head, a nice roof over your head, is very important.
That's Rick talking about his experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We got Rhino Shield 18 years ago, and they're very cooperative on getting us the right paint. They were in and out and done in no time. Once it was finished, looked great. We were very happy with it.
The main reason Rick called Rhino Shield is because it's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty.
We've watched a lot of people get their house painted 3 or 4 times, and we haven't had to do any of it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to have to paint it every 5-7 years.
Take a tip from Rick and put down the paintbrush and call Rhino Shield for your free evaluation. 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO. Or visit 877-25rhino.com.
We got Rhino Shield 18 years ago. Financially makes sense, especially if it's going to last like this did. Still looks great.
Call now. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Jamie Allman here for O'Fallon Family Floors. Experience the